What Nell was referring to is this book, which I'm going to talk about on another show sometime. This is my book. This is out. In case You Are the Message, it's called. Go to your bookstore. You will not find it there because my publisher has this idea that you should not have them in the bookstores. I don't know, it's some kind of a new marketing plan. But anyway, here's a book you will find in the bookstores. Take a look at this, The Tax Racket. You can see it on your screen. There it is right now. Martin L. Gross wrote this book, and it is selling like hotcakes because it has tapped into something that the American people feel very deeply, that somehow the IRS is overreaching and perhaps they're paying too much in taxes. What made you write it? Why did you decide to take on the IRS, and have you been harassed since you did?
I have not been harassed, but the reason I took it on is, you know, I did 2 other books on government, The Government Racket and Call for Revolution. I found out how they're wasting the money. So I decided, well, how do they collect the money? And I found out they're not very nice in collecting the money. And as a matter of fact, there's a great deal of lying going on in the tax code.
In the tax code, written in the law, there's lying?
Well, lying in the philosophical lying in this sense. Back in Harry Truman's days, our exemption was $600. And as a result of that large exemption for the time, the average American family of 4 paid $66 to the IRS per year, less than the clothing budget of the typical family. All right. You take that $600 and extrapolate it to 1995 through inflation, you get $5,400. But if you look at your tax return, it's only $2,450. So instead of doubling or tripling the rate, quietly they lower the exemption, and who knows that the exemption has been lowered over these years. Same in capital gains. You buy a stock for $25, you sell it for $50 after 20 years. You've lost $25. It should be $75 just to keep even with inflation. Government says no. We're the only country in the world that doesn't index capital gains for inflation. What the government does is figure we got this big nut to pay, this bloated government. Now we have to find out subterfuges and ways to collect it. And the problem is that the IRS operates unconstitutionally every day, all day. Congress knows it. The Supreme Court knows it.
Well, Congress created it and let them do it.
Exactly. The tax code is written by Congress. It's 14,500 pages. No one's ever read it. No one understands it. Money Magazine gives a return to 40 accountants each year, and they come in on one return last year from $33,000 to $75,000 on the same return, because you're dealing in mystical activity, because that tax code is impenetrable. Now, what do we have to do, basically, is stop the IRS from being what it is, which is really a friendly or not so friendly American Gestapo. They have rights that the Constitution doesn't permit. For example, Article 4 and 5 of the Bill of Rights says you can't search or seize papers or property without due process. That means you get a summons, you go to court, the defense, you get a warrant, a judgment. They do nothing. They call up the Citibank and they say, does Mr. Jones have $10,000 in his account? They say yes. They say, send us a bank draft for $10,000 to the IRS, and we'll send you a notice of levy. Now, you can't do that in a democracy, but they do it every day.
It is search and seizure.
Search and seizure, of course it is. Now, this doesn't happen rarely. This is 2.5 million times a year that they levy money from banks. 1 million times a year they put liens on property. And we've got to change it, because not only is it unconstitutional, we can't afford them. And we got to change the mechanism so that we can control taxes rather than let politicians control it.
Okay, we got to take a quick break. We're going to come back. The subtitle of this is Government Extortion, A to Z, the tax racket. You won't believe this. You don't even know. You're paying taxes on everything. You're probably paying taxes on this show. I'll see you right after this, please.
I owe the government approximately $1,100. I have no income. I have 3 children. And they're telling me they can't give me an extension to get the rest of my papers together unless they pay $1,100, and I don't have the money to pay.
Yeah, I come here to get the income averaging. That's taken away with. Schedule double is taken away with. I just don't know what happened here.
I don't know what happened here. That's sort of the way everybody feels on April 16th.
Yeah, well, what happened was, on the income averaging, in 1986, they said, we're going to lower the tax code so that 28% is the max. But you've got to give up your income averaging, your sales tax deductions, your interest on loans. You do all that with, all right, now it was in the 40 range, went down to 28, now it's back to 41, and we've lost the deductions. So what they do is they whipsaw you. They've done this 31 times since World War II. As long as the tax code exists, they're going to extort the money, and they're going to find ways to do it.
How does that poor woman owe $1,100? She doesn't look like she can afford $1,100 to pay that. How could she owe that? She has no income.
Probably FICA. The FICA tax has no deduction. So that if you work at McDonald's, you're paying $750 a year in Social Security tax. We're the only country in the world that taxes people from the first dollar. Now, my plan is the following. You got to stop the Gestapo. You got to stop them from coming into your home, taking your papers, and the only way you can stop it is not filing. Now, we have to file today. I'm not
you go to jail.
Exactly. I'm not a tax protester. I'm a Congress protester. Congress has to change the law, and there's a man in Washington, thank God, named Bill Archer, Republican, head of the House Ways and Means. He took Rostenkowski's place, also, thank God. And he says that he's going to pull the IRS out by its roots. And I've been working with a number of people in Congress in terms of what we need to do that. And the tax to eliminate the 1040 form, which means wages, salaries, inheritance tax, capital gains, individual entrepreneurs. All we need is 13.5% federal sales tax, excluding housing, no tax, excluding food, no tax, and excluding medical care.
So medical, housing, medicine, and food, things that poor people absolutely have got to have, you don't tax them.
No tax at all. Now, in addition to that, if you add 6 cents on top of that, you eliminate the FICA of all employees. So for 19.5 cents, you get your whole paycheck. Now, in order to do this permanently, we have to...
Now, you're saying on items I buy, I'd pay 19 cents.
And you get your whole paycheck, and you file with nobody, and nobody knows you're alive. Why? Because even the FICA will be paid by the employer, but not by the employee.
So I'm out of a government computer.
Exactly.
I don't have these guys calling me up and bugging me. I've paid my taxes because I go out if I want to buy...
a Lexus.
If I want to buy a Lexus, if I want to buy a boat, if I want to buy a lawnmower.
And if you want to keep your taxes low, you buy an old Chevy instead of a Lexus. You pay less taxes.
If I want to keep my taxes lower, I buy a push hand mower
exactly.
instead of a power mower.
Exactly. You control your taxation.
And I control my life. I control my own lifestyle.
Now, let me tell you the self-employed. We got 20 million people filing self-employed. Now, that's a total extortion because the government charges you double. I wrote a letter to Rostenkowski a couple of years ago, and he wrote me back, you're two people. You're a employer, an employee, because you're self-employed. Now, I'm a little chubby, but I'm not two people.
Well, I am, but I am chubby, and I was two people, because I was self-employed for 25 years. They taxed me twice.
Twice. Now, it's so bad that if you're in the 39,000 tax bracket, which is not a lot of money, and you're self-employed, you're paying 41.3% to the federal government, then you're paying your state income tax, then you're paying perhaps the city income tax, then you're paying the property tax, then you're paying your gas tax, and then you're paying your sales tax. And so here's a guy who hasn't got enough to eat. He's in the 50% bracket. Now, that's extortion. That's not taxation.
I grant you that. The average citizen works from, what, 5 months a year for the government, basically,
right,
before he gets any money from
Exactly. And there's more, we pay more in taxes, the average family, than in food, housing, or medical care combined. And what we do is we support 85,000 different governments in America, and every one has its own...
Explain that to me, because I read that in your book. 85,000 governments.
Who collect money.
These are different people who collect money from us.
Towns, villages, school districts, states, federal government, etc. 85,000 of them. They even have swimming pool districts that collect money. They have park districts that collect money. And I saw a tax bill from Long Island was sent to me. 11 different governments were on the tax bill, 11 different governments. Now, how do we solve it? Well, first, the federal thing, we eliminate the IRS. The IRS...
How many people will that cause to be unemployed, and does that matter?
110,000, and we have a very highly developed welfare system in America. And
they either go get a real job or go on welfare.
We save a lot of money. Now, what does the IRS do? Now, the IRS is the tax collector.
You know you're going to get me audited from this conversation.
By the way, it's very interesting. I spoke to the PR guy at the IRS.
They audited me once. Yeah. The guys came in and ripped my place apart for a year, and then sent me a letter saying, well, we couldn't find anything wrong. I guess you're okay.
Well, you're lucky because the average audited person has to pay $2,500 per audit.
Yeah, mine was more than that. But the fact is I filed such simple returns, there's nothing there. But I mean, why it took them a year to harass me?
Now, they have a new technique. This year, 1995, they're auditing 153,000 people in the following way. Not related to their tax form. They pick the Social Security number. It's called a whole life audit. They come to your house. They want to see your marriage certificate to prove you're married. They want to see your children's birth certificate. They want to see your birth certificate. They go through your bank account. They find out your financial history, your credit report. Then they go over your tax return line by line. It's worse than any other audit. And these people are the most innocent because there's no red flag. This comes out of a computer. And
Are they nice about it at least when they come over to your house?
Well, they take a week or 2 weeks of your time. And they don't pay you a nickel for it.
I got to take a break. We're going to come back with Martin Gross. The Tax Racket, Government Extortion, A to Z, right after these messages.